And we're live from the living room as Doug eyes up the match day spread. He's reaching for the buffalo wing. Perfect! Hang on, what's this? Oh, he's gone for a can of Pepsi too! Incredible! What a finish! Sensational combination! Look at the delight on his face. There's no doubt about it. It just tastes better. Match days deserve Pepsi. Food deserves Pepsi. Grab a pack of Pepsi Zero Sugar for today's match. It's poetry in motion.
Mornings have a rhythm. You can hear it, feel it. And at Quaker, we fuel it. With 100% whole grain oats and a good source of fiber in every bowl, helping you turn that rhythm into your soundtrack for a great day. Fuel to start whatever's next. Quaker, official sponsor of FIFA World Cup 26.
Let's go! Let's go!
This episode is brought to you by Google Chrome. You think you know a browser, but Gemini and Chrome? That's new. It can help you with practically anything on the web, like restoring a vintage motorcycle from a 50-page restoration blog, or finally break down that long article you've had open for weeks. Gemini and Chrome is here for it. Ready to make anything online make sense? There's no place like Chrome. Check responses, setup required, compatibility and availability varies, 18+.
The research could not be more clear. We have done this now for, we're getting very close to 4 full decades where we've looked at different indices, different ways of assessing social psychological health and comparing it with sport fandom measures, typically how identified or how psychologically connected individuals are to a team. We get the same thing every time. Individuals who identify with a particularly local, but not exclusive, but typically a local sport team, lower alienation, lower sense of social isolation, lower likelihood of experiencing negative emotions, higher sense of social or collective self-esteem, higher sense of being well-rounded socially. Any way you want to frame it, we find that people that are highly identified, they have these things. And that's a pretty valuable tool that sport fandom brings to the equation.
Started as a kid with a team to believe in. Every win and loss left my heart still beating. Year after year through the rain and the sun, learning that faith is what makes us strong.
The kick is up, and the kick is good afternoon, and welcome back to the Superfan Diaries. I'm your host, J.R. Greene, recording from our studios on Broadway in downtown Nash Vegas, bringing you the biggest sports, the biggest moments, and the biggest fans, celebrating passionate sports figures and their unique stories. Yes, legends. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share your own game day traditions or stories online. Today, we're about to get inside your head. I'm J.R. Greene, and this is a story about a man who has spent his entire career asking the question the rest of us never thought to ask. Why do we do this? Why do we put paint on our faces? Why do we yell at the television? Why do we cry when a team we have never had the athleticism to play for, in a city we have never possibly visited, wins or loses a game? Why does it matter so much? He has been asking that question since the late 1980s. He has published research featured in ESPN, Sports Illustrated, and Bleacher Report. He has worked with Michael Phelps and Cal Ripken Jr. He has been on the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, Speaking of Psychology's podcasts. He has spoken at universities and conferences across the country. And here is the best part. He'll be the first to tell you that studying sports fans is basically like studying himself. Because he is one, a diehard Rock Chalk Kansas City Jayhawks fan. I know I said Kansas City, that's just a slight to the old Jayhawks. And a proud Murray State Racer supporter. He is the professor of psychology at Murray State University and the world's leading expert on the psychology of sports fandom. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Daniel Wann! Welcome to the show, Dr. Wann.
That is an introduction that's far better than I deserve, but I will say this, you are more right than you know. Several years ago, I was in my office ranting and raving about a recent Racer basketball game, and the professor next door stuck his head in and said, "I now know why you're so productive as a researcher." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're your best subject." That's exactly correct.
But isn't that the way we all are? I mean,
Exactly.
That's the key, is getting to know who we are. And you, at least, were the brilliant one that became the aforementioned, call it expert around the world of knowing fandom. And as a show, as we talked a little bit in the green room getting started, is that our show, Superfan Diaries, is all about super fans and the passion they feel, whether they're already the superstars or the billionaires or regular fans like the rest of us. The fandom is so core to us, and I think that it's a pretty powerful thing. And as a start, Dr. Wann, I made sure to pretend like I was doing grand rounds today. I put on a nice suit for you because it's academic. I wanted to be like I was at the different universities whenever I speak. And I think one of the most unique parts about this, why I'm so excited today, is my father was a psychiatrist. Before he passed, he was a psychiatrist for many, many years. He practiced, as you all know, many of the psychiatrists left are much older. And he is one of the older ones, became a geriatric psychiatrist, was one of the folks involved with creating the APA's DSM-5. So he was one of those individuals. He was the chairman of psychiatry for over almost 20 years at the University of Tennessee. So yes, Dr. Wann, I've had a lot of psychological experimentation. I have been through a lot of psych evals. Let's just face it, as a son of a psychiatrist, imagine 18 years while I'm growing up, psych evals until I got to college. I gained freedom in college.
Yeah, I always said that it would have to be very difficult to have been my children and to have played sports and grown up with someone who studies sports psychologically. Bless their hearts.
Yeah, at least my dad did geriatric psychiatry, so
right.
I at least have another 15 years before I'll need the expertise of his past career.
Yeah, you were spared, unlike my children. That's exactly right.
I love it. All right, well, take me back. You started studying psychology and a sports fan in graduate school at the University of Kansas, which, as everyone listening knows, is one of the top premier Mount Rushmore basketball programs in college in the NCAA. And this was in the 1980s.
Yep.
How does that become your life's work? Was there a moment where you said, this is what I want to spend my career on?
Yeah, I would love to tell you that I had a dream or I went on a vision quest. But mom and dad taught me not to lie. So here's the truth. Here's what happened. My first week at the doc program, the social psych program at the University of Kansas, our first assignment in my methods class, which had myself and one other student, right? It's a class of 2 plus the professor, Nada Branscombe.
Yep.
Our assignment for the second week was to come in with a testable hypothesis. And I forgot this assignment, and I was at home watching Sports Center, and it was time for class, and I hopped on the bus and went to class and walked in, and she said, Dan, why don't you go first? And of course, I'm like, going first on what? And I'm like, oh yeah, the testable hypothesis. And she said, so what's your hypothesis? I had just been watching Sports Center.
All right.
There had been a riot in soccer in Europe. And I said, well, I think that if you're more identified as a sports fan with your team and its players, you're probably more likely to act violently when things don't go your way. You would have thought I had discovered a cure for cancer. She thought it was the best thing she'd ever heard. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is great. My one great single life idea came about because I'm a moron. That's just kind of disappointing.
No, because you thought on your feet so brilliantly.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Another is, procrastination. But yeah, so that's literally how it came about. And the thing was, although so many people, literally billions, across the globe are sports fans, nobody was studying it scientifically from a social scientific perspective. And so I found a niche that people cared about, because the vast majority of people are sports fans and they want to hear about themselves. And those who aren't sports fans would really love to know why all these sports fans are doing the crazy things that they're going to do. So it resonates with pretty much everybody. And B, no one had really done anything. So, the canvas was blank.
White
for
paper.
the most part.
Yeah,
exactly.
and so for you.
From there you go.
Well, you think about it, because everything in sports, what people study, and even when they go to college, a lot of super athletes and a lot of people that may not become professional athletes, they go into physical therapy. They go into the studying, orthopedic surgeon. I mean, you go into the field in some format, but it's about managing the physical elements of sport, which everyone sees on television. Like that, we're in the middle of the World Cup, and everyone saw the accident where that guy broke his leg in the middle of a game, or almost every weekend at a football game. That's where our minds go. That's where the entertainment goes. We're not really here talking about the mental health of it. Obviously, not very much. We talk a little bit more of, I think, the PR aspect for athletes, but we certainly don't talk about the fans. And I think that's where you did it. But let's jump back to Kansas City basketball. You root for them. You studied there. There's not many fan bases bigger than what goes on at a Kansas Jayhawks game. And I think, especially now that you know everything you know, how does it feel to be celebrating and following fandom as a Jayhawk fan?
Yeah, it's interesting. My first year at Kansas was the year in 87, 88, where they had the national championship. And so,
Well,
I'm starting, they got a few.
Yeah.
That one was timed very well for somebody who wants to study sport fans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard to find fans at Kansas, but when they win championships, I mean, everybody comes out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking for a job 4 years later, and I really didn't have a desire to go to a large university. First and foremost, I love to teach. I love to be in front of the classroom. So I want to go to a university, at least to some degree, emphasize teaching.
Right.
But I also wanted to go somewhere that had a opportunity, should I desire to continue to study sports fans. So, going to a small liberal arts college, that's not really going to work out. So Murray State had an opening, and they had a very successful history in basketball as well. So the things that I did at KU, I was basically able to just kind of slot on in to an admittedly smaller mid-major scale, but slot on in to Murray State. And then, of course, in the state of Kentucky, if you don't find Murray State fans, everybody wants to talk about the Kentucky Wildcats. So it just flowed from grad school on into my position here at Murray State.
And you've been there for a wonderful period of time. And if you think about Murray State, though, this is a Cinderella story that's happened twice. They beat Marquette, and unfortunately for our Vandy fans here in Nashville, they beat Vanderbilt the last second shot. So, I mean, for folks that want to research it, Murray State is definitely that, not sidecar, but, it's Big Blue. I mean, in Kentucky, it's Big Blue, midnight. I mean, when I've interviewed some of these fans, these are the fans you do your research on.
Right.
Very similar to Kansas fans. And I think, from that, also the same colors. But I think that the big piece there is it's wonderful that you got to get there. All right, well, let's get into it. Your research identifies 8 motivations for sports fandom. You stress self-esteem, escape, entertainment, economic, aesthetic, group affiliation, and family. For a room full of fans listening right now, which one of those do you think most people do not realize is actually driving them?
Yeah, I think that higher than most people think is the aesthetic motive. I think that people undervalue how much they themselves as fans and their friends who are fans view sport actions as a form of art, as beauty and grace. And what I find interesting about this is that when I talk to individuals, they fully expect that and assume I'm talking about diving, synchronized swimming, gymnastics, the stylistic sports. Yes, absolutely. People see beauty and grace in that, but we have found that, quite frankly, sports fans see beauty and grace in pretty much every act you can find on a field, a pitch, an arena. We've had people talk about, Lynn Swann diving for a football, the art and the grace in that. We've had, when I did work with some professional golfers and the fans of professional golf, talk about the beauty and the grace of the swing, the arc of the swing.
Yep.
We'll have fans of boxing talk about the beauty and the grace of a knockout punch. That always really kind of made me giggle inside.
And Mike Tyson gave us a lot of those.
No, right. I mean, the beauty and the grace of someone getting a concussion. So I think that people are surprised of the power of that one. I do think that at the end of the day, the most important of those motives is the affiliation, because the bottom line for sports fandom is connections, whether it's connections to other fans, connections to players, connections to teams, connections to stadiums, connections to announcers, connections to podcasters, connections to anything you want to throw in there.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. And so I think that the affiliation motive, our desire to engage in fandom, to affiliate, to associate in some ways with other people and other things, I think that's the biggest and most important driver of those motives.
Well, I mean, and they're huge. And if you go back and look at, again, all these motivational pieces, you have found that highly identified fans, the people deeply, if you've gone through, look at our podcast, these are the people every week we're interviewing what I will call celebrity superfans. I mean, people and their local community know exactly who these people are. Would you argue that they have a better social, psychological health, better sense of belonging, less loneliness, more life satisfaction? It seems counterintuitive to a lot of people who think fandom, including I've heard my own wife say it to me, that fandom can be a waste of time. So make the case to everybody out there. Say, honey, I know why you don't want to watch this. You don't want to be watching this game. It's a quote waste of your time, but tell us why it's not.
Yeah, I will say this first and foremost. I won't argue that because nobody cares what I think. The data argue that, right?
That's right. Let's talk data.
It's one thing to say, I always tell my students in my classes, I don't want to hear their opinion on tests, and they're not going to get my opinion, right? This is a science. We know psychology is a STEM discipline, right? We want to act scientific.
Yes.
And the research could not be more clear. We have done this now for, we're getting very close to 4 full decades where we've looked at different indices, different ways of assessing social psychological health and comparing it with sport fandom measures, typically how identified or how psychologically connected individuals are to a team. It doesn't matter which different subjective well-being measure we use. We're up to like 36 different ways of assessing this. We get the same thing every time. Individuals who identify with a particularly local, but not exclusive, but typically a local sport team, lower alienation, lower sense of social isolation, lower likelihood of experiencing negative emotions, higher sense of social or collective self-esteem, higher sense of being well-rounded socially, lower levels of alienation, any way you want to house it, frame it. We find that people that are highly identified, they have these things. And, that's a pretty valuable tool that sport fandom brings to the equation. It's not even a matter of does fandom lead to well-being? It's a matter of how and how much. It's a fact.
There's no question, and I'm obviously I'm sold and bought in. Maybe I have a conflict of interest, but I would say it on the flip side, what happens psychologically when your team does lose a big game? Because some people, like the riots that started your career, which are really bad. And I don't want to go to the super dark area, but like I know in Indonesia and some of these other countries that may not have the fire code, trampling. I mean, there's hundreds of people that die at sporting events due to trampling. And I begin to, step into that piece of psychologically, obviously the loss of the game isn't what's causing the trampling. It's the herd mentality of the running out and the fire code clearly not being in effect at that particular stadium, because that's the science, is that human nature are animals. And when that happens, the loss isn't what caused people to die in that trampling situation. It's the lack of infrastructure, set up, and then obviously certain situations firing it off. But do some people generally become mentally devastated, and is that healthy? I mean, like, where's that line?
Yeah, I think that it's not psychologically and scientifically fair to only paint sport fandom in a positive light. Like any other topic you want to come up with, there's going to be a darker side. And there's a few different darker sides for the psychology of sport fandom. One is that, there are situations where fans have taken it to a level that they should not have, right? You can get too wrapped up in any genre you want to name, and that can have potential negative impacts for, your productivity at work, your interpersonal relationships, things like that. You can get so wrapped up during the game, you can become violent, things like that. We have to acknowledge that. And now, I also think that we also have to remember that we're talking about a very small number of people. Let me use interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships as an example. Most research would say that only about 3%, 2 to 3% of interpersonal relationships are negatively impacted by one individual's fandom. That's a very small percent. However, what's 3% of the number of people on the planet that are in a relationship? That's a crazy big number, right? So I think that we want to be appropriate in where we place this stuff, in terms of how much, how often. It is an important thing that we should talk about. Most fans, they do it right. But there are certainly a number out there, they're in the minority, but they're out there, that they engage in fandom in such a way that it has a negative consequence for them individually and then for society as a whole. Most fans, they have, at a level that I think is like the most perfect out there, fans of sport have learned how to cope. There's no fan out there, no genre. I mean, whether it's Game of
Alabama
Thrones
for
fans
7 years, they didn't have to cope, but now they're
no,
coping.
yeah. Now everybody, right, has to
Yeah.
cope. I always say Cub fans, it was just that one down century, right? Just one down century. That's all that they coped with. And that's, people will ask me, I mean, done this for 40 years. They will ask me, what's the craziest thing about sports fans? And they'll want to hear the stories. They're always surprised that my return line is the craziest thing about sports fans is that there are sports fans, because half of the people consuming this product are going to be disappointed in the product after they consume it.
Yep.
And they know that going up front.
Oh, by the way, as Kentucky fans, you may win a game, and you win a game against a bad team, and you leave that arena, Rupp Arena, angry. You just won the game, and you are livid as you get in the car. So it's more than that. There's a chance it's more than 50%.
Well, and look at the NCAA basketball tournament. There's only one happy fan base at the end of the tournament, right? Everybody else ends on a loss. And so how is it that we're able to continue to come back season after season after season?
Yes.
Because we cope, right? Because most sports fans have figured out how to get past the pain and suffering that they're feeling today and move on to next season. Because there is, in 99% of the situations, bless your hearts, Oakland A's baseball fans, there is
Cleveland Browns.
always going to Cleveland Browns. There's going to be a next season, right? Yeah. And there's always hope. Hope springs eternal.
And I think that's where the mental health component of it is so huge. All right, well, that's the end of the first half. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to go deeper into the science of superfans. Yes, talk about some of those fans because you all know those fans, what your team actually does to your brain, and what Dr. Wann has learned from working with some of the greatest athletes in the world.
Are all batteries the same? That's like asking if all soccer players are the same. Take Messi, the most decorated player ever. Is there any other player who has achieved that? No, just him. Now take Duracell. Is there any other battery with power boost ingredients inside? No, just Duracell. Remember, goats only trust goats because they're built different. And Messi only trusts Duracell.
So good, so good, so good.
New summer arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off brands like Rag & Bone, Levi's, Adidas, and Free People. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Hey, it's Bill from the Bill Simmons podcast. FIFA World Cup 26 fans, listen up. As the official beer sponsor of the FIFA World Cup 26, Michelob Ultra is giving away $1 million worth of FIFA World Cup 26 tickets and prizes. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26. Michelob Ultra FIFA World Cup 26 superior access, no purchase necessary. Open U.S. residents 21 plus, begins on December 1st, 2025, ends on July 31st, 2026, multiple entry periods. Visit www.MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26 for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
We'll be right back.
Started as a kid with a team to believe in. Every win and loss left my heart still beating.
Welcome back. We're back with Dr. Daniel Wann, the world's leading expert on sports fandom and psychology. Dr. Wann, this show is all about superfans. And right before the break, we started talking about that 3%, that 2 to 3% are those fans that don't do the right thing, but yet they get all the attention. And so when we begin to talk about the negative light and other pieces of it, I'll give you a perfect example. On our show, we get requests, and I'm not exaggerating this, and you're going to know who I'm about to talk about. I get at least 1 to 2 requests a week for our show to interview a Kansas City unfortunate fan named Chiefaholic. Now, this is an individual who robbed banks. He's done harm, and as you could know, as the son of a psychiatrist, this individual posed mental health damages to other people by robbing the bank. So we're not going to be interviewing him. So sorry, everybody, because it's not a show to where we want to bring on individuals that have done harm to others. But yet he gets his own 30 for 30. He gets his own show. He gets the attention of the media and everyone to jump in on that particular character who dresses up, I think, in a gorilla outfit or something and rob banks in the name of Kansas City Chiefs, the football. That 2 to 3%, that's not a super fan, in my opinion. I think, that's an individual, and I would go out to say that's a criminal. I mean, that is an individual taking it to another level. And I also think that 2 to 3%, and I know there's a significant higher number, but I think drugs, alcohol, other pieces of that will define that fandom experience. Because we've all been in a game, I've taken my own son, where you've got the individual just cussing like crazy behind you. That's a super fan. He's going through it. He clearly has gained what we just discussed, his coping skills. And it's unfortunate that he's having to cuss so much with my younger son, having to be nearby. But I still think it's a minority. Because if you look up at 200 people behind me, how many, Dr. Wann, are singing and cursing every word? Maybe 2?
Right.
2 to 3? And it gets right back to what you just said. The 2 to 3 are making a much louder, we're going to call exposure to fandom. And I don't think there's anything we can do about it. I mean, I think that's part of the fandom that's unfortunate. But then we forget about all the people that, like you and others I've interviewed on the show, that do so much good. I mean, they're giving back with their name brand. They've built it. They've become, like you just said, they've become this a part of belongingness. And the one thing you used is that the aesthetic of what they bring to the table and wearing that makeup, because it makes kids happy. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces that, I think that's the biggest piece. So when we're looking at these two different types, and we know the super fans, the question for you is, what separates what I'll call a super fan from a casual fan?
Yeah, I think that a lot of things go into the point in time when the fan decides this is not just going to be something that I do casually. This is going to be something that's more a central part of who I am, right? That their sense of psychology, their sense of self-worth, their overall identity now is at least in part, and then sometimes in a large part, wrapped up around being a fan of this team. What you find is that it's that moment when the fan realizes that they are involved as a fan for intrinsic, internal reasons rather than extrinsic reasons. So if you start your journey as a sports fan, and so you move to a different country and you don't know much about the sport of that country, so you go to a game and, hey, this was kind of neat, maybe I got some social connections. Those are extrinsic rewards. Or, hey, they threw out a t-shirt because everybody loves a t-shirt. And so now all of a sudden you're like, I might go back again because I kind of liked experiencing those rewards. After a while, you may find yourself going to games where, well, wait a minute, my friends aren't going to be there. I still want to go see what happens. Or there's not going to be a Beanie Baby given away. I still want to go. There's no bobblehead. I still want to go. Yes. Now all of a sudden it's made this transition from I'm getting these things extrinsically to internally, intrinsically. Now it is literally how I define myself. And it's at that point that sport fandom begins to do something that's critically important. Yeah. It's at that point that the sport fandom begins to meet basic psychological needs for that individual. We've talked previously so far about the need to belong. This is innate, right? We all have a desire to belong, but yet we have a desire for search for meaning. Right? We have a need for meaning. Sport fandom can provide that. It can give people a reason to get up in the morning. We have a need for structure. People can structure their day and their week and their seasons and their years around sport. We have a need for distinctiveness, right? We want to be like the people.
Your weddings. Around. I mean, you just popped in my head. Think about how many weddings in SEC country. No one ever gets married on the third Saturday in October in Knoxville, Tennessee, because Tennessee plays Alabama. The churches just take off. They're like, no, there's nobody going to get married this weekend.
Yeah, well, wait till the Super Bowl next year. It's on Valentine's Day.
Uh-oh.
There's going to be some serious negotiating going on. I have a funny feeling. Because, again, we structure these things where we feel different because of our sport fandom. We fit in because of it. That's the point where you go from a casual fan to a super fan, because now all of a sudden it's a part of you, and you're gaining these incredibly important benefits psychologically through that endeavor.
Well, and not just think about that, but let's get back to some of the pieces that you've coined and popularized. You've got two key words here, and I want to make sure I get them correct. It is BIRGING, Berging, which is basking in reflective glory, where fans say, we won when their team wins. And then there is corfing, CORFING, which is cutting off reflected failure when the fans say they lost. Walk us through what that reveals about human psychology.
Yeah, so this stuff goes back to the early days in research on sport fandom. These are some of the topics that actually predated my entering into this realm. Basking in Reflected Glory actually started out as the work of Robert Cialdini. And what he noticed, and some colleagues noticed back in the 70s, was that sports fans had this strange way of like glumming up on the success of their teams. It's like, I can't
Yeah.
believe how great it was that we won. What do you mean we won? You didn't even move, right? You were so nervous you couldn't even go to the restroom. What do you mean we won? And
Yep.
then a few years after that, Rick Snyder, who I actually had the pleasure of knowing because he was on my dissertation committees at the University of Kansas,
Yep.
he comes up with this idea of cutting off reflected failure, where it's like, yeah, well, what happens when the team loses? Well, it's a they lost. But here's a critical point: if you're this super fan that you're talking about, that they lost, this cutting off reflective failure, this way of
Right.
decreasing our association, it's really not available, right? It's like if you've been living and dying
No.
for this sports team for 30 years and then they lose a championship, you don't get to say, well, I'm never going to care for that team again, because your friends, first of
You
all,
want to.
yeah,
You want
you
to.
want to.
But you
My
can't.
mom, all the time, every time the Chiefs would lose, which was back when we were following Chiefs back
Yeah.
at this point, all the time. I'm never going to follow the Chiefs again. I'm like, here, first of all, Mom, don't you know what I study? Right? You should like look me up on like Google me, eh? But it's like, and then the next year, first game, there she is in her Chiefs sweatsuit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We can't, because again, it's who we are. It's like, you can't cut off an arm. You can't cut off your sport fandom.
Well, and not only that, I begin to kind of reflect back on my own fandom and any other individuals. There is a feeling you get, and I went to college at TCU and then got my MBA at Tennessee, and that's where I, had an opportunity to become the Big Orange Tux guy. And I think that through all that moment, when I'm in like another country, when I had an international role, I was traveling around the world, and I'd wear that Tennessee hat. A lot more people know Tennessee than they do TCU. But I would wear that Tennessee hat in these other countries, and I'd tell you 100% of the time, you'd run into someone that would see that Vol hat and be like, go Vols, Rocky Top. The feeling that I would get just in that moment was first a smile, always a smile. And that's sometimes all you need. Yep. But I think that same level across all fandom, whether it's Yankees or Red Sox, when you wear that hat around the world or in other locations and you see people like you just talked about before, that's your fandom. And it's not something you can just paint on, because the other part about this, and I can so relate to what you're describing, is when Tennessee has a big win, even if I miss the game for whatever reason, I get like 15 texts from my closest friends going, congratulations. I didn't even know the game. I did know the game's going on, Dr. Wann, but I may have been on an airplane or something where I couldn't actually get access, and I knew that it's not worth recording because everybody's going to tell me the result when I land. But the feeling of that feeling is special. So as we think through that, face paint, costumes, tuxes, lucky jerseys, pregame rituals, from a research standpoint, what's actually going on there for us super fans that are doing this?
Yes, so much to unpack there. First of all, I love your point about you travel the world and you'll be in the middle of nowhere and someone will see the Vols hat and they'll say, go Vols.
Yeah.
That's a very critical point, because these connections that we've been talking about, they do not have to be deep. They can absolutely be peripheral, momentary. The research is very clear on this, that we get these well-being benefits of belonging, not because we have to sit next to the person for 5 hours and have this detailed conversation. Just walking through a mall and someone walks by you and says, hey, go Racers. That's all it takes, as you say, to put a smile on your face, put warmth in your heart, and feel as though, hey, I'm connected to those around us.
Right.
As far as the rituals are concerned, there is no study I've ever done that I've enjoyed more than the study that I and a few colleagues did, published it maybe 12, 13 years ago now, on the superstitions of sports fans. It took us 8 years to code the data. And not 8 years because the data were so detailed, 8 years because it would take us about an hour to get through each subject, because we would literally be laughing and not be able to speak for an hour. It was the most riotous thing ever. We have about 1,000 sports fans that were highly identified, these super fans that you're talking about, that we said, give us your 2 superstitions at home and 2 at the arena or at the game. And the level of richness in the writing and the detail they would give. The Notre Dame football fan who said that before each quarter, when he would go to games at Notre Dame in person, he would have to read 3 passages from the Bible. And the Notre Dame fan who said at games, he would have to, before each quarter, have to drink 3 beers. And they were the same person. So there's somebody at Notre Dame games with a Bible in one hand and a beer in the other, you know, and you know, the person who said that their superstition was that they had to go up to the TV. I'll start again for those in the back. He'd have to go up to the TV, put his hand over the face of the free throw shooter of the other team to distract that person. These are educated people. This guy was in our master's degree program in psych here at Murray State.
Yeah.
We asked individuals, why do you do this? And far and away, the most common response was, because if I don't and they lose, it will be my fault. See, here's the thing. We're diehard fans, whether it's Racers, Jayhawks, Vols, TCU, we're diehard fans. But we've already established in this discussion that we really can't do anything about it, right? We just sit up there basically helpless. So we invent these superstitions to, in our brain, make us think we have some control over these otherwise uncontrollable situations. One person said, I wear my St. Louis Cardinals baseball fan. I wear my lucky hat. And the reason I wear it because I know it works, because last year as a season ticket holder, I did a study. This guy literally randomly assigned games to hat. He tossed a coin. And when it came up hat and he wore it, they won about 20% more of the games than when he didn't wear a hat. So this guy's now absolutely convinced. We asked them on a 1, not at all, to 8, absolutely scale. We asked these educated individuals,
yes,
do you think you doing this thing that you do literally makes your team win? The average score was a 5. I want you to think about that for a minute. These are educated people.
Yeah.
We're going, if I wear my lucky socks, then Kobe's going to have a better game. It's just the crazy.
I mean, but I will say, I did get to interview, Mr. Oranje, the largest Netherlands World Cup superfan in the world. And I got to interview him a couple weeks ago. And he did tell me something that was pretty interesting. Obviously, he dresses up in that orange outfit, that while individually it may not make any difference, collectively, when you see those Norway folks rowing in Times Square in unison, marvelous fandom. You see the orange men with the double-decker bus. I'm just speaking of World Cup right now because it's so hot and heavy. But as a collective group, again, he swore to me that by them showing up, because my argument was, I think in hockey and soccer, I just don't know how the fans can interject. Rock Chalk Jayhawk, yes, you are messing with people's minds because you are 6 feet from literally epidermal tissue. And therefore, in that level, your voice, your mannerisms, the signs in the basketball, that absolutely has a scientific impact.
Absolutely. Home field advantage. It's a real thing.
And football, and college football, the sound of the arena, no matter where you're going, is without question an impact. But in hockey and in soccer, I'm not an expert like you, but I don't understand how fandom can play any part of, other than getting excited for maybe penalty shots or something where the crowd can get you motivated, because the game is going so quickly and actions can happen to where it's not like a fan is disjarring a field goal kicker, which can happen. Does that make sense? I don't know where I'm coming up with this stuff, but I just feel
so
hockey
absolutely.
and soccer are different.
Individually, when a sport fan does what they do, the chance of that mattering are minuscule, if even that.
Right.
But, you go to an Ohio State football game. My wife's an Ohio State grad. I've been to several of them. That's 100,000 people doing something. Our son is in grad school at Texas A&M.
Oh, wow.
I mean, those yell leaders, absolutely. I mean, that's big time. And when you've got that many people engaging in the same activity, the research, again, the science, social, psychological science, it's very clear here.
Yep.
Those of us who study sport scientifically with a social psych background, we understand the home field advantage. We understand that individuals' performances are a function not just of what they do, but the environment that they do it in. And this is the important point. It's not always just that they are being moved or aware or whatever of the spectators of the crowd. Just the presence of others can be enough to make a difference. Now, some people will say to me, well, yeah, Dr. Wann, how much of a difference are we talking about? Okay, so a successful penalty kick or not.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
Right? I mean, you're talking they always say this is a sport is a game of inches. Every sport is a game of inches. I mean, the dashes in the Olympics, it's a game of millimeters, right? Yeah. So when you're talking about the difference between success and failure being defined so small, large crowds absolutely make a difference.
Well, think about it right there. We just talked about the athletes, that it does make a difference. You just mentioned it. Tell us some of the work with Michael Phelps, Cal Ripken Jr. What is it like sitting across from elite athletes talking about the psychology of sports? We're starting to interview more super fans that are celebrities on our show, that are individuals that are household names, that are super fans, and they have the same passion, and they're doing the same thing you've just described, where they're putting their hand on the television if they can't make the game because they're performing at a concert.
Right.
Do these individuals that are the performers on the field, kicking the penalty kick, of which he missed yesterday, and we all know about it, do they see fandom differently than the others, than the rest of us?
Yeah, I think they would have to. Right. I think most individuals that I have come across in my time that are professional athletes or high-level college athletes, they actually enjoy the fandom, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some, I think, understandably have gotten a little bit tainted by it. I mean, when you get asked the same question, Cal Ripken, right? I mean, at what point was he asked, are you going to break the game's played record? I mean, then for 8 straight years, that same question over and over and over again. I understand that it probably could get a little bit old, but most of them see fans as, I don't want to say a necessary, because that's kind of too much transactional, but they understand that at the end of the day, without fans, most of these sports don't exist, right?
Yeah.
And that, and most athletes, they know that there is some entertainment involved, that they, by and large, know that what they do for a living is going to be done in a public space, and they acknowledge that. They acknowledge that. I think that most sports fans underestimate the pressure that puts on people, right? I think that most fans, they're like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, every day their job performance is seen by millions, sometimes with the World Cup, billions, and expectations. And how many goals does Messi have to score to reach some of these individuals' expectations, right? And so I think that for some fans, they undervalue exactly how much pressure that is on these athletes.
Well, you just mentioned something big about questions and the questions around them. For you personally, if we jump right back to you, you've had a lot of journalism ask you a lot of questions because you are the expert on fandom and psychological and how it all works in that world. What's a question you wish they would just stop asking you?
Yeah, just one? No, yeah, I jest. I guess, thankfully, I'm not asked this very often anymore. But early on, the questions always wanted to be around the negative sides of fandom. The stuff we mentioned before.
We went earlier, yeah.
Yeah, the violence and the interpersonal relations and couch potatoes. I mean, I think those things are worthy of discussion. But early on, that was a lot of what people wanted to discuss. Yeah. And it took a while to get people to understand that, you're really missing the point. If every fan was that way, then these events would be outlawed, right? You wouldn't be able to put these things on. So it was nice that is no longer, for like the last maybe 15, 20 years, that's no longer the opening question. It comes up as it should. And sometimes when it doesn't come up, the question will be, is there anything that we haven't talked about? I'll bring it up. I'll say, yeah, we need to acknowledge that sometimes this can be problematic for individuals and societies as well. It's just nice it's not first and foremost.
I love that. And it just brought up another question I had for you today, which is, because you said the word, we talked about negativity. We talked about the negative part, gambling. If we think through gambling when I was younger, it existed either from shady environments of which I didn't have access to, or Vegas. Now I can pull up an app and go to DraftKings and bet religiously as a fan. And I've got experience with really super, call it Ohio State fans, that are so in love with gambling to make them a bigger fan every Saturday. And they bet on like 20 different teams every Saturday. And I go, why? And they're like, well, I can win. And it makes me want to watch the game.
Yeah. So whether or not you like sport wagering is going to be impacting what I say next. If you don't like it, then I'll say I'm sorry. If you do like it, then I'll say you're welcome. Chris Christie's office, when this all started, 15, 18 years ago, they contacted me. And the leagues were, we don't want sport gambling. We don't want sport gambling. It's going to change how people are sports fans. And, New Jersey was like, we would like to do this and tax the heck out of it because, well, I mean, who's not looking for revenue at the state level, right? And so they said, can you, write up a report from what we know about sports fans? How should increasing the availability of legalized wagering impact sport fandom? And I'm like, I'd be happy to. I mean, there's really no data out there at the time. And so the closest pastime or component of sport fandom was fantasy football.
Yes.
And people were then the leagues were like, we don't want fantasy football. It's going to change how people are fans. And then somebody in the NFL was like, oh yeah, do we really care why they're fans, or do we care how much they're fans? Yeah. They're not just watching their team's games; they're watching every game, right?
And so Sunday ticket. I mean, you can't stop because you got to watch all your players.
Red zone. Red zone is because of fantasy football, and so I wrote this report that basically said, is it going to change fandom? I mean, for some fans, maybe a little bit, right? Maybe it's going to make them feel a little bit more anxious. But for the vast majority of fans, it's just going to be another connection. Will there be fans that take it too far and become addicted?
3% rule. The 3% rule.
That's exactly right. The rule of three. So I tell my students, lots of rules of three. Here's another one, evidently. Yeah. So I was told that actually excerpts of my report were directly read to the Supreme Court. I have no idea if that was a good or a bad thing. I wasn't there.
I think it's pretty cool.
It's kind of cool. But then now here we are, 15 years later. And I mean, if you would have said, do you, go get your crystal ball and look 15 years later, and you're going to have like ESPN, half the ads, I swear, are sport gambling ads,
Dr. Wann, not just half the ads. Texas Tech was just given favorability to move forward with a player who bet Pete Rose style on his own team.
Yep.
Now, he walked away from it because he could see a spider web of black widows that was going to destroy his long-term career. I think he probably made the wise decision to just go pro and get out of that mess, because that was going to be a hotbed that was going to end up on his head. So he ended up, for right or wrong, Texas Tech fans. But wow, you didn't see that happening.
No. How fast did we get here? Right. I mean, so when we were talking with these individuals and they're like, so, if they do increase the legalization, what do you think will happen? I'm like, well, it's going to increase how much people legally gamble, because people are already illegally gambling. Right. I mean, everybody had at their office, there were office pools, and they got, the bracketology stuff going on. You bet the brackets way before it came out. You could do it and make a dime or lose a dime online.
Yeah. Always.
But I had no idea. I mean, I would never, had I known, I probably would have put money on certain companies. I don't know. But that was,
yes, you would have.
I missed the boat on that one.
Next time, don't miss that. It's now time for the Desert Fan Island, one of our fan favorites, Sports Psychology Edition. All right, Dr. Wann, it's time for you to pretend you are at a Jayhawks game. You're by yourself, just the Jumbotron in the arena. You only get one movie on reloop. You get one musical artist, one food, one drink, and one person to be with. Right out of the gates, what's the number one movie you're going to have rotating?
Star Wars.
That's a good one. All right, one musical artist.
Journey.
You've been really hitting some good ones here. All right, one food.
One food.
One food.
Let's go. That's the toughest one of them all. One food. Let's go with a cheeseburger.
All right, healthy American cheeseburger. One drink.
Diet Coke or
All
Diet
right,
Pepsi. A Diet Cola of some kind. Yeah.
Diet Coke. Diet Coke sounds good to me. I'm a Coke guy. All right, one person.
My wife, Michelle.
All
I
right.
have to because she's a bigger sports fan than I am.
I love it. All right, one past Kansas City Jayhawk athlete, past or present, that you would like to have on the island to get to experience all this fun watching these movies, Star Wars and Journey.
Yeah, Danny Manning. That's an easy one. Danny Manning. Because I was there for the, Danny the Miracle.
You nailed it. You nailed it. Quick break, subscribe, leave us a review, and we'll be right back with Dr. Daniel Wann for the Buzzer Beater.
Everyone knows that unexplainable it factor, that smile that lights up a room, that wow. Well, it doesn't happen by itself. There's chemistry behind the charisma. Colgate Optic White Pro Series toothpaste removes 15 years of deep-set stains when you brush twice daily for 2 weeks. How? The clinically proven formula is powered by Colgate's hydrogen peroxide complex. It works at the molecular level to gently dissolve stains deep within the enamel where your brush can't reach. It's proof that daily routine can be remarkable. That's the science of wow. Colgate Optic White.
Pays checkout is offered by your banks and credit unions. So when you shop online at participating merchants, your cards appear in one place, ready to use and kept up to date. And the best part, your actual card number isn't shared when you check out because boundaries are healthy, like no work emails after 6. One small step for boundaries, one big leap for checkout. Pays. It checks out. Activation required. See pays.com to learn more. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast instead of doom scrolling? Smart move. Another smart move? Getting help from one of State Farm's 19,000 local agents when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Started as a kid with a team to believe in. Every win and loss left my heart still beating.
Dr. Wann, you've been studying this for over 30 years. What is the thing you believed early in your career that the research eventually proved wrong?
That's a wonderful question, and one that I am so happy and honored to answer. Early on in my career, when I started studying this stuff, so in grad school in the 90s, while here at Murray State, I found that the media types wanted to talk to me because, again, as we mentioned earlier, pretty much everybody's a sports fan. They're curious about it. And I would be talking to these media types and they would say, I love your research. And I'm thinking, that's very flattering. Who doesn't want people to care about what they're doing? But I would always phrase it with, but I'm not, it's just sports fans. I'm not trying to cure cancer or anything. And I absolutely do not do that anymore. We undersold the value of sport fan. That's the thing that's most surprising from the 70s into the 80s, into the 90s, and in the 2000s to where I am now in 2026. We undersold it. I would have never have thought back when I was, downing what I was doing by saying, it's just sports fans, not curing cancer, that 20, 25 years later, we would now know that sport fandom helps individuals meet multiple basic psychological human needs. That's the one thing that I would not have seen coming.
No, by the way, I wouldn't have seen it either. And if you just think about the stigma of behavioral health, I mean, you doing the role you do now is significantly in a different way than what it was for your children. And for me, I was a shrinks kid, right? And, I think the world has come so fast forward. I think COVID help move it in that direction a little bit. But there's no doubt about this. One quick question before we go to the buzzer beater.
Sure.
I want to jump to the NIL world. This is new. It's scary. I think it is absolutely, at least from the text messages I get from all my fandoms and my friends following different teams, it's jarring to watch your Kansas City Jayhawks every year have to refill an entire new team. And players that you may have loved last year are going over to Missouri or Ohio State or Michigan. This is complex for superfans because historically the college game was locked in. The NFL, you are paid. What do you think this is going to do to fandom? If you just had to say 30 seconds or less, what's this going to do to fandom?
It's not going to be good, because part of fandom, again, we go back to the word connections, right? Part of fandom is connecting to the athletes. And if you get in a situation where enough times your favorite athlete is gone after a year, you're going to, as a fan, stop connecting to the athletes. That's one less connection, one less reason to care. I see it with college basketball fans here at Murray State. We have a very good mid-major tradition.
Oh, you're gone. Every year your players are gone from Murray State.
Yeah, we hope so. That's the sad thing, right? It's like, hey, we want our players to be really good, and then they're going to leave, because only the ones that'll stay are the ones that aren't any good. It's such a catch-22, right? People will be like, your coach is going to win a lot of games and leave. Yeah, I guess that's a good thing.
Wow. That's so counterintuitive.
Strange world. Yeah, it's a strange world.
Well, that's the world we now get to be in. All right, it's time for the buzzer beater. Rapid fire. Okay, Dr. Wann, I'm going to ask you quick questions. Just answer exactly what comes to mind. No hesitation. Number one, most fascinating fan base you have ever studied?
Kentucky.
Craziest fan behavior you've ever witnessed in person?
I saw a person reach over my shoulder and grab the breast of a woman sitting in front of me, and it caused a riot in the right field bleachers at Royal Stadium.
Did the person go to jail?
No, this is back in the 70s, and that was sort of accepted rules of behavior in the right field stands at Royals games.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, as I say, somebody should study these people.
I mean, unbelievable. All right. Berging or corfing? Which one do you catch yourself doing more?
Definitely bask and fled to glory. Absolutely. I never corp because I care too much.
Best sporting event atmosphere you've ever personally experienced?
Oh, hands down. Dick Vitale came to Murray State for one of the Bracket Buster games. Matthew Dellavedova was here playing against us for St. Mary's. We won that game. We ranked like 9th in the country, undefeated, like 22-0 at the time. Easy answer.
I remember this. All right. One sports city whose fan culture you think is genuinely misunderstood?
All of them. I don't want to cop out on you, but all of them, because they all have their pros and cons.
If you could study any single sports moment in history for its psychological impact on fans, what would it be?
Oh, Jackie Robinson. The first year of Jackie Robinson.
42. That's a great answer. What is the one thing every parent should know about their kid being a sports fan?
That it has far more benefits than negatives.
I love it. Does being a super fan in sports actually improve your mental health?
Yeah, if you do it right. For the vast majority of people, it does.
Remember, the 97 that do it right. The 3%, you can't just let the 3% rule go into effect. Years from now, when fans and researchers talk about the person who helped the world understand why sports matters so deeply to so many people, what do they hope they say about Dr. Daniel Wann?
That I studied something that I had a passion about, and that I was approachable to talk about that passion.
I love it. And where can our listeners find your research and follow your work?
The easiest way is just to get a copy of my book, Sports Fans, The Psychology and Social Impact of Fandom. That's the easiest way, because that's the Bible, and the things that I and other people have done the past 40 plus years, it's all in there.
Outstanding. Dr. Wann, you asked the question everyone felt, but nobody studied. Why do we care so much? And what you found after 30 years of research, even more, hundreds of papers, and a lifelong of being a fan yourself, is that it's not silly, it's not a waste of time, and it's not just a game. It is belonging. It is identity. It is meaning. It is the feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself, something that was there before you and will be there long after. And every single person who has ever painted their face, worn a lucky jersey, or screamed at a television alone in their living room was right all along. This is the Superfan Diaries. I'm J.R. Greene. Look up Dr. Daniel Wann's research. Links in the show notes. Follow, review, and nominate your favorite superfan at superfandiaries.com. And remember, if you make one person smile today, you've had a great day. Make them laugh. Even better. Go get them.
Uncovered windows can make your home feel up to 20 degrees hotter. Stay cool and save up to 50% off custom window treatments during the 4th of July mega sale at Blinds.com. From outdoor shades to room darkening blinds, finding the perfect fit is easy. Get free samples, expert design help, and professional measure and install services. Or DIY with confidence and support every step of the way. Shop up to 50% off site-wide, plus huge savings on doorbusters right now during the 4th of July mega sale at Blinds.com.